All right, so we just to remind you where we are. Check. So we're going through our invertebrate groups. We talked yesterday about sponges, cnidarians, echinoderms, worms. So we just got a couple more that we'll talk about. The next one is mollusks. So mollusks are animals, invertebrates. They have a soft body, but it's often enclosed in a hard shell as well. The body's called the mantle, and they move with a part called a muscular foot that they kind of slither around the ground on. Some live in the water, some live on land, some have a shell, some don't. So here's some examples of mollusks. What is this?
A snail.
Yeah, that's a slug. That's a banana slug.
Oh, banana.
So they can.
It looks like a giraffe.
They can grow very large. They can be, several inches long. And slugs, you find, you can see them in your backyard in the spring and summertime, especially in the morning. They'll be on plants, on the grass. They eat plant matter usually. They have a tongue that sort of has teeth on it that they scrape off bits and pieces of the leaf. Some snails that live in like aquarium, or in the ocean, or in lakes, they eat algae off of rocks and stuff. Joe? Yeah, I'll find my desk. We'll get it later. So, yeah, so people say if you sprinkle salt on a slug, yes, it dies because of osmosis. Because water from inside the slug's body leaves going into the salt, and it gets all dehydrated and dried up, and it dies. So this is an octopus. Octopus is one of the most complex of invertebrates. They have a well-developed nervous system. They have the ability to camouflage themselves. It's unbelievable. I'll show you a video probably tomorrow that shows some of this. But octopus, squid are also mollusks. These are called bivalves, clams, mussels, scallops, oysters. They are filter feeders. They basically live in the water. They suck in ocean water, and then they filter out little bits of food, and they squeeze out any excess water. When you look inside of a clam, probably lots of you have seen the inside of a clam. Basically, the shell can open and close, and it has a little part that sticks out of the shell to suck in water. Sometimes they use like jet propulsion to move themselves around through the water. They do move through the water. And if you eat a clam, what's inside, you basically have all the body parts. You have the excretory system, the digestive system, all that stuff is enclosed in that little thing that you take out that's clam.
I'm not eating clams.
This is a snail. Snails make their shell, so they don't they can't come out of their shell and go find a new one. That's hermit crabs. They make these shells. They're a part of it. They secrete the substance that forms the shell. This is a nautilus. It also has a shell. They have an interesting shell that you can find at the beach. And again, this is a conch, which is sort of like a snail. You can find a conch shell. They're big shells, and they have an animal. They have mago shells. When you go to the beach and you collect shells, basically you're finding mollusk shells. The animals that made those shells are no longer alive, but their shells last a long time, and that's what you find at the beach. Jacob?
I heard there was this kind of it's not a rock, but it looked like a rock and had animal inside.
Oh, like a barnacle?
Yeah.
It could be a barnacle. Looks kind of like a rock. They attach to piers and boats and things, and yeah, they basically stick on there and they have a shell on the outside.
Like when Pearl had it on her face.
All right. Our last group that we need to talk about are called arthropods. Now we've seen this root before, P-O-D. Where did we see that root when we talked about what it means? Joey? Okay. Cephalopod includes squid and octopus. What did you say, Jenna? Pseudopods. What did the pod part mean? Pseudopod meant false feet. Pod means feet, like a podiatrist. Arthropod, that word means jointed feet. And what that means, joints are an area between two solid materials that allow for some movement. Arthropods have bodies divided into segments. They have bilateral symmetry. And they also have a hard shell around the outside. You know what it's called? Dan? Yeah, it's called an exoskeleton. So here this ant, it's surrounded by this sort of hard shell. And between these plates of the exoskeleton, there's a little gap so that parts can move. Arthropods, the most the type of animal that's most abundant. Up to 75% of all animals are in this phylum, arthropods. It has many subgroups. It includes all of the insects, so like bees, ants, mosquitoes, butterflies, all of those. It includes arachnids, like spiders, ticks. It includes centipedes. It includes millipedes. It also includes crustaceans, lobsters, crayfish, crabs. All of those things are also arthropods. So it's a very big group. And so here you see this crab. Obviously has this hard exoskeleton. But those white areas, those are the joints between the parts, the plates of their exoskeleton. So those are the areas that they can actually bend. You know, it's kind of like this suit of armor. A suit of armor, you know, the arms aren't just like a tube of steel, right? Yeah. Otherwise, it'd be really hard to fight off a dragon if you have just these tubes of steel. So between each part, there's a little gap there that has a movable part so that you can bend at the various joints. So it acts as a suit of armor. We'll get to this video tomorrow. But the other thing that's common in many insects is a process called metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a change in the body structure or size of an animal. And so one type of metamorphosis is called incomplete metamorphosis. And this is metamorphosis when the animal doesn't completely change its structure. It basically just grows larger each time. And for example, an egg of this grasshopper hatches into a very small thing that looks just like a grasshopper. It's called the nymph. And at some point, it sheds its exoskeleton. It sort of breaks out of that shell, grows larger, and then a new shell forms. And then, after a little while, it happens again. It breaks out of that shell, grows larger, and a new shell forms. Because once that exoskeleton forms, it can't grow any larger. And so each of those stages is called the nymph stage until it reaches eventually an adult grasshopper, which can lay eggs, and the cycle repeats. So the stages of incomplete metamorphosis are egg, nymph, and adult. And this, I have an example up here. We used to find them in our swing set. We had one of those wooden swing sets in our backyard. And we would find often in the summer these little, they look like beetles stuck there, but they would never move. Because they weren't really living beetles. They were just the exoskeleton. I brought one of them, I glued it up here. And you can see it's got like a split down the back. It's all dry. Basically, they attach to some soft surface. They grab onto it like the bark of a tree or our swing set. And then the back of their exoskeleton splits and the beetle comes out that way, flies away. It's soft for a little while, so it's kind of vulnerable to predators. It grows larger, and then a new exoskeleton will form on the outside. That process is called molting, shedding of the skin.
Is that the same thing that happens to snakes?
Yeah, similar. It's called molting in snakes too when they shed their scale. That's one type of metamorphosis. Do you have a question about this one, Jacob?
Yes.
Okay.
When they break out their shell, I thought you said they don't have any bones.
They don't.
So how like they move if they're just like weak?
It's like a not. It's still. It's not like soft, mushy in there. It's kind of like a softer shell.
Oh, okay.
The other type of metamorphosis is called complete metamorphosis. In complete metamorphosis, the animal goes through a radical change and sort of looks like a completely different creature after its metamorphosis. Yeah, the example, I'm sure probably a lot of you in elementary school, did you raise caterpillars?
Yeah.
And again, you probably studied these and you know that the egg hatches into the caterpillar, which is the larva. What's the job of a larva to do? Eat. It's going to eat as much as possible, get as much energy as possible until it reaches the stage where it can form the pupa stage. Inside of pupa stage, it transforms until it emerges as the adult version of that animal. In the case of a caterpillar, it's a butterfly. And what's the adult's job to do? Fly eventually. The main job is not to eat, though.
So pollinate if you go to Mexico.
You're on the right track there, Nick.
Right?
You're on the right track. Pollination is flowers. Yeah, its job is to reproduce. That's what the adult stage, it lays eggs, which can start the cycle again. So that's called complete metamorphosis. All right, any questions about metamorphosis? And
Aw, gee, Mom. Not my baby photos again.
Mom, I got my baby photos again.
You don't even know how to read.
what, nothing? Not even a smile?
No.
It's a butterfly family. His baby pictures are when he was a pupa, when he was a caterpillar.
Gee, Mom, I got my photos.
Aw, gee, Mom.